The morning sun rose over New Haven Colony like it had for the past 15 years. Jake Morrison stood on his office balcony, watching the golden light spread across the endless fields of grain. The sight never got old. 50,000 people called this place home now, and Jake felt proud every time he looked out at what they had built together. His wife, Lisa, was already at work in the medical center. She always started early, checking on the patients and making sure everything ran smoothly. Jake smiled, thinking about her. They had come to this planet as young newlyweds, full of dreams about starting fresh on a new world. Those dreams had come true in ways they never imagined. Down in the fields, Pete Johnson was already working with his farming crew. Pete had been one of the first settlers, and his wheat crops fed half the colony. He waved up at Jake from his tractor, and Jake waved back. Everyone knew, everyone in New Haven. It was that kind of place. Dr. Alex Carter was in his lab, studying samples from the planet's strange blue flowers. These flowers only grew on this world, and Alex thought they might have special healing properties. He worked alongside Zethkai, an alien scientist from the friendly Vorthok people. The Vorthok looked like tall, thin humans with gray skin and big black eyes. They had been trading partners for years now. The molecular structure is fascinating, Alex told Zethkai, as they looked at the flower under a microscope. I think we're close to understanding how it works. Zethkai nodded with his large head. My people have legends about these flowers. They say they can heal both body and spirit. Alex smiled. He loved working with the aliens. They had so much knowledge to share, and they were always peaceful and helpful. The galaxy seemed like a friendly place when you had neighbors like the VORTHAK. In the school. Amy Foster was teaching a class of 30 children about Earth history. The kids loved hearing stories about the old world, even though most of them had been born right here on New Haven. Amy had been teaching for 10 years now, and she loved watching the children grow up. Can you tell us about the oceans again, Miss Foster? Asked little Bobby, a 7-year-old with bright red hair. Earth's oceans were huge, Amy said, spreading her arms wide. So big you couldn't see the other side, and they were full of amazing creatures like whales and dolphins. The children listened with wide eyes. They had lakes here, but nothing like Earth's vast oceans. Their planet was mostly land, with small seas scattered around. Security Chief Kevin Blake was making his morning rounds of the colony's defenses. New Haven didn't have much protection because they didn't need it. The galaxy was peaceful, and they were friends with all their alien neighbors. Kevin's job was mostly ceremonial, but he took it seriously anyway. The defensive grid consisted of 10 small plasma turrets and a basic shield generator. It was enough to stop pirates or wild animals, but nothing serious. Kevin often joked that the biggest threat they faced was Pete's cows getting loose and eating the vegetable gardens. Engineer Carl Davis was down in the power plant, checking the fusion reactors that gave the colony its energy. Carl was a quiet man who loved machines more than people. The reactors hummed happily under his care, providing clean power to every home and building in New Haven. All systems running perfect, Carl muttered to himself as he checked his readings. Just the way I like it. The colony's daily life moved like clockwork. Children played in the parks while their parents worked. Farmers tended their crops while shop owners served customers. Everyone had a job, and everyone felt useful. It was the kind of life that people on Earth could only dream about. Jake finished his morning coffee and headed to his office. As colony administrator, he had to review trade agreements with 3 different alien species. The Vorthok wanted to buy more grain. The insect-like Klixen needed metal, or from their mines. The peaceful Draknari requested medical supplies. All good problems to have, Jake thought. Trade meant prosperity, and prosperity meant his people lived well. But far away in space, something dark was moving toward their peaceful world. The Scarix Empire had been watching human colonies for months. They were a warrior race that looked like giant lizards with sharp teeth and claws. Their scales were black as space, and their eyes glowed red like burning coals. They believed that only the strong deserved to live, and they saw humans as weak prey. War Commander Vector stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying images of New Haven Colony. His massive claws tapped against the metal railing as he planned his attack. 50,000 humans, he growled to his officers. Soft, weak creatures who think the galaxy is safe. We will teach them otherwise. Behind him, a fleet of 200 Scarix warships moved through space like deadly shadows. Their black holes were covered in weapons, and their engines burned red like their master's eyes. They had come to destroy, not to conquer. "When do we attack, Commander?" asked one of his officers, a smaller Scarix with scars across his face. "At dawn," Decta replied. "When they are still sleeping, when they think they are safe, we will show them what real power looks like." The Scarix ships moved closer to New Haven, their sensors scanning the peaceful colony. They saw the farmers working their fields, the children playing in their schools, the families living their quiet lives. To the Scarix, these humans looked like insects waiting to be crushed. In New Haven, nobody knew what was coming. Jake Morrison was reviewing trade reports. Lisa was treating a patient with a broken arm. Amy Foster was reading stories to her students. Pete Johnson was planting seeds for next season's crop. They went to sleep that night, thinking about tomorrow's plans. They had no idea that tomorrow would bring fire and death from the stars above. The last peaceful night on New Haven Colony was ending, and none of them would ever be the same again. The attack came with the sunrise. Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the sky turned red. At first, he thought it was just the dawn light, but then he saw the ship's massive black vessels hung in the air like giant vultures, their hulls blocking out the sun. Plasma beams rained down from space, turning the colony's defense towers into melting metal. The shield generator exploded in a ball of fire that lit up half the settlement. In 30 seconds, New Haven's defenses were gone. Kevin Blake was running toward the security center when the first beam hit the building next to him. The heat burned his face as concrete and steel turned to liquid. He grabbed his radio with shaking hands. "All citizens, this is Security Chief Blake," he shouted over the noise of explosions. "We are under attack. Get to the emergency shelters. Now." This is not a drill. But there was nowhere to run. The shelters were built to protect against storms, not military weapons. The alien ships kept firing, turning homes into ash and people into memories. Dr. Alex Carter was in his lab when the walls started shaking. He ran to his computer and started recording everything he could about the attacking ships. His hands moved fast over the keyboard, uploading data to the emergency beacon. "If anyone receives this message," he spoke into the recorder, "we are under attack by an unknown species. Large ships, advanced weapons. They're killing everyone. Please, someone has to know what happened here." A plasma beam cut through the roof above him. Alex kept typing, even as pieces of burning metal fell around him. He had to get the message out. Someone had to know. .zeth. Single quotes Kai, the alien scientist, tried to help him upload the data. "My friend," the Vorthok said with his gentle voice, "we must leave this place." "Not yet," Alex replied, almost finished. The message went out just as the lab exploded around them. Amy Foster was reading to her students when the attack began. The children looked scared as the building shook and lights flickered. Amy tried to stay calm for them, but her heart was racing. "Everyone under your desks," she told the children. Just like the earthquake drills. But this was no earthquake. Through the windows, she could see the black ships in the sky, firing down at her world like angry gods. One of the children started crying, then another. Soon they were all sobbing in fear. Amy gathered the children close to her. It's going to be okay, she lied. Help is coming. The school's wall exploded inward. Amy threw herself over the children. As chunks of concrete rained down, she felt something heavy hit her back. But she didn't let go of the kids. Lisa Morrison was treating patients in the medical center when the wounded started arriving. Burns, cuts, broken bones from people running and falling in panic. She worked as fast as she could, but there were too many hurt people and not enough supplies. Dr. Morrison, called Nurse Betty Clark, we need more beds. Put them on the floor, Lisa replied, bandaging a child's burned arm. We'll make room. A man stumbled in, carrying his unconscious wife. Please help her, he begged. She was hit by falling debris. Lisa looked at the woman and saw the terrible head injury. There was nothing she could do, but she tried anyway. She always tried to save everyone. Jake Morrison ran through the burning streets, trying to reach the evacuation centers. He saw neighbors and friends lying still in the rubble. Mrs. Johnson from the bakery, young Tim who delivered mail, people he had known for years, now silent forever. He found Pete Johnson trying to rescue people from a collapsed building. Pete's face was covered in dust and blood, but he kept digging through the wreckage with his bare hands. Jake, Pete called out, there are people trapped in here. Help me get them out. Together, they pulled a family from the ruins. The mother was hurt badly, but the father and 2 children were alive. Small victories in a day full of death. The black ships landed, and creatures came out that looked like nightmares. They were tall as bears, covered in dark scales, with teeth like knives and claws like swords. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but moved like hunting animals. War leader Grakthul led his troops through the burning colony. His red eyes glowed with satisfaction as he watched the humans run in terror. This was what war should be: quick, brutal, and complete. Kill them all, he ordered his soldiers. Leave no one alive. The Scarix warriors moved through the streets like a plague. They shot anyone they saw, whether running or hiding. Old people, young people, children, it didn't matter. They showed no mercy to anyone. Kevin Blake tried to organize a defense with the few security officers he could find. They had small weapons that barely scratched the aliens' thick scales, but they fought anyway, trying to buy time for civilians to escape. Fall back to the community center, Kevin shouted to his men. Protect the families there. They fought building by building, room by room, but there were too many aliens and not enough humans. One by one, Kevin's officers fell, until only he was left. Carl Davis was trying to keep the power running, so people could use elevators and emergency lights. He stayed at his post, even as explosions shook the power plant. The fusion reactors were still working, still giving power to whatever was left of the colony. Come on, old girl, he whispered to his machines. Keep running just a little longer. A group of civilians found him in the power plant. Carl, we need to go, they said. The ships are taking off. If we run now, we might make it. Carl looked at his control panel, then at the people counting on him. You go, he said. I'll keep the lights on. But the aliens found him before he could escape. Carl Davis died at his post, hands still on the controls that powered his colony's final hours. Jake Morrison made it to the evacuation site where Kevin Blake was loading people into damaged shuttles. The ships were small and could only carry a few dozen people each, but they were the only way off the planet. How many can we save? Jake asked. Maybe 800, Kevin replied, his voice hollow. Out of 50,000. Jake felt his heart break. 49,000 people would die today. His friends, his neighbors, his wife, still at the medical center trying to save people. There wasn't time to reach her. Get these people out of here, Jake told Kevin. I'm going back for more. Jake, no. Kevin grabbed his arm. The whole place is coming down. You can't save them all. I can try, Jake said, and ran back into the burning colony. The shuttles took off carrying the survivors. They looked down at their home becoming a graveyard. Amy Foster was in one shuttle, holding 3 children she had saved from the school. The rest of her students were gone. Pete Johnson was in another shuttle, his hands still bloody from digging people out of rubble. He had saved 12 people, but lost his own family in the attack. As the shuttles flew away, the Scarix ships turned their biggest guns on the colony itself. Massive beams of energy struck the ground, turning buildings to glass, and people to ash. The beautiful farms became craters. The happy homes became memories. War Commander Vector watched from his flagship as New Haven colony died. 50,000 humans had lived here this morning. Now only smoking ruins remained. Send a message to their other colonies, he told his communications officer. Tell them what happens to humans who spread too far into our galaxy. But the humans in the escaping shuttles were already sending their own messages. Videos of the attack, recordings of the massacre, pictures of dead children and burning homes. The evidence of what the Scarix had done was racing toward Earth at the speed of light. The aliens had wanted to send a message of fear. Instead, they had just declared war on the human race. 6 months after the New Haven massacre, the videos arrived on Earth. President Helen Parker was in a meeting when her aide burst through the door. The young man's face was pale, his hands shaking as he carried a data pad. Madam President, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, you need to see this immediately. Helen took the pad and pressed play. The screen filled with images that would haunt humanity forever. Children running from plasma fire, families torn apart by alien claws. Amy Foster throwing herself over her students as the school collapsed. Jake Morrison's final moments as he tried to save one more person. How many? Helen asked, her voice cold as winter. 50,000 dead, the aide replied. 847 survivors. Helen watched the footage 3 times before speaking again. Each viewing made her angrier. These weren't soldiers who died in battle. They were farmers, teachers, doctors, children. Innocent people who had never hurt anyone. Get me Admiral Torres, she said. Now, Admiral Ben Torres was Earth's most experienced military commander. He had fought pirates and rebels for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like the New Haven videos. When President Parker called him to her office, his weathered face was hard as stone. I want them dead, Helen said, without introduction. All of them. The Scarix Empire has over 1,000 worlds, Torres replied. Billions of people. Then we'll need more ships, Helen said. How long to build a fleet that can do the job? Torres thought for a moment. 2 years. If we mobilize everything, every shipyard, every factory, every worker. Do it, Helen ordered. Whatever you need. Money is no object. Time is no object. I want a fleet that can turn their worlds into ash. The transformation of human civilization began that day. Dr. Susan Wright was pulled from her research lab and given unlimited funding for weapons development. She had been working on theoretical projects that military commanders called too dangerous to build. Now they wanted her to build them all. I need facilities, she told Torres during their first meeting. Underground bunkers, testing ranges, and about 10,000 scientists. Done, Torres replied. What can you give me? Susan smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Things that will make our enemies wish they had never been born. The first weapons to come out of her labs were called Hellfire missiles. They were kinetic projectiles that could punch through any known armor. The second were Wraith stealth. Ships that could appear and disappear like ghosts. But Susan's real masterpiece was something she called Planet Breaker. It was a weapon so terrible that she built only one, hoping it would never be used. Dr. Marcus Lee was assigned to study the Scarix technology captured from the New Haven attack. His job was to find weaknesses in their ships and weapons. Marcus had lost his brother in the massacre, and his research was driven by cold rage. Their shields work on a rotating frequency, he explained to Torres during a briefing. If we can match that frequency, we can punch right through them. How long to build weapons that can do that? Torres asked. 6 months, Marcus replied. Maybe less, if you give me enough people. The shipyards of Earth, Mars, and the Moon worked day and night building warships. Assembly lines that had made cargo vessels now produced destroyers. Factories that built passenger shuttles now made fighters. The entire human economy shifted to one purpose: war. Captain Ryan Scott led intelligence teams deep into alien space. His job was to map Scarex's territory and find their important targets. Ryan was a former Special Forces soldier who could speak 6 alien languages and disappear in any crowd. His team included Julie Adams, a pilot who could fly anything with engines, and Nick Baker, a Marine who could fight his way out of any trap. Together they slipped past Scarex's patrols and studied their defenses. Their homeworld is called Scarth, Ryan reported back to Earth. 2.3 billion inhabitants. Heavily defended, but not impossible to reach. What about their military bases? Torres asked over the secure channel. Spread across 200 systems, Ryan replied. But I've identified the key ones. Take out 50 installations, and their whole defense network collapses. The human war machine grew stronger every day. Ships rolled out of the yards faster than anyone thought possible. Weapons that existed only in theory became reality. Soldiers trained with a fury that scared their instructors. But the most important change was in the human spirit itself. Videos from New Haven played on every screen in human space. The images of dead children and burning homes were shown to every recruit, every worker, every citizen. The message was clear. This is what happens when someone attacks humanity. Factory worker Bill Thompson worked 18-hour shifts building missile guidance systems. His daughter had been the same age as the children who died on New Haven. Every missile I build kills one of those monsters, he told his wife. That's enough reason to keep working. Pilot trainee Carol Watson practiced combat maneuvers until her hands bled from gripping the controls. She had never been to New Haven, had never met anyone from the colony. But she had seen Amy Foster's last moments, and she wanted revenge. Why are you doing this? Her instructor asked during a break. Because they killed children, Carol replied, and someone has to make them pay. Admiral Torres assembled his fleet. Commanders, in a secure facility on Mars. The room was full of humanity's best military minds, all focused on one goal. We have 500 ships, Torres announced. The largest fleet in human history. Every vessel is equipped with the latest weapons and shields. Every crew is trained to the highest standard. He activated a hologram showing the Scarex's empire. Red dots marked their military bases, their shipyards, their command centers. Our mission is simple, Torres continued. We will destroy every Scarex's military installation. We will sink every Scarex's warship. We will break their empire so completely that they can never threaten anyone again. Captain Adams raised her hand. What about their civilian populations? Torres was quiet for a moment, thinking about the videos from New Haven. They showed no mercy to our civilians. But we are not them. We will target military assets only, unless they force our hand. The fleet gathered at the edge of human space. 500 warships of every class. Massive dreadnoughts that could crack moons, fast cruisers that could outrun any enemy, small destroyers that could slip through any defense. The flagship was the UES Retribution, a new class of warship built specifically for this mission. Its weapons could level cities, its armor could stop planet killer beams, its engines could outrun anything in space. Torres stood on the bridge, looking out at his fleet. 50,000 people had died on New Haven. He commanded a fleet of 200,000, all sworn to avenge them. Sir, his communications officer reported, all ships ready for jump. Torres thought about Jake Morrison, who died trying to save his neighbors. About Lisa Morrison, who died treating wounded children. About Amy Foster, who gave her life for her students. Send a message to the Scarix Empire, Torres ordered. Tell them we're coming. Tell them why. The message was simple. You killed our children. Now you face the consequences. The human fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading for Scarix territory. Behind them, Earth's factories kept building more ships, more weapons, more instruments of war. The age of human expansion was over. The age of human vengeance had begun. The human fleet struck like lightning across the galaxy. Admiral Torres launched Operation Payback with surgical precision. His ships appeared at the edge of Scarix space and immediately began destroying military targets. No warnings, no negotiations, no mercy. The first target was a Scarix naval base in the Kethmer system. Captain Julie Adams commanded the stealth destroyer U.S. Phantom, leading a strike force of 20 ships. They emerged from hyperspace and attacked before the aliens knew they were there. Target the orbital platforms first, Adams ordered her, weapons officer. Then the shipyards. The Phantom's new weapons, designed by Dr. Wright's team, cut through Scarix shields like they were made of paper. Plasma beams that had protected alien ships for centuries simply failed against human technology. Direct hit on Platform 7, reported Lieutenant Sam Carter. It's breaking apart. Good, Adams replied, watching the burning debris fall toward the planet below. Let them see what happens when you murder children. The Scarix defenders tried to fight back, but their weapons couldn't lock onto the human stealth ships. The Phantom and its escorts destroyed 12 orbital platforms, 3 shipyards, and 47 warships in less than an hour. Admiral Torres watched the battle reports from his flagship. Each destroyed Scarix installation brought him satisfaction, but it wasn't enough. He wanted them to understand why they were dying. Open a channel to all Scarix frequencies, Torres ordered his communications officer. Channel open, sir. Torres activated the recording system. This is Admiral Ben Torres of the Human Earth Fleet. We are here because you murdered 50,000 innocent people on New Haven Colony. Every ship we destroy, every base we burn, is payment for their blood. He paused, then added, we have videos of your troops killing children. We want you to know that we've seen what you really are. The message went out across Scarix space, along with footage from the New Haven massacre. Torres wanted every alien to see exactly why the humans had come for them. War Commander Vector received the message aboard his flagship in the Vector system. He watched the human videos with cold eyes, feeling no regret for what his troops had done. Weak creatures, he growled to his officers. They cry over the death of younglings. This is why they will lose. But his confidence began to crack when the humans attacked his fleet. Commander Nick Baker led the Marine boarding assault on Nectar S escort ships. Baker was a veteran of a dozen battles, and his troops were trained specifically for close combat with aliens. The Marines cut through the hull of the Scarix cruiser Blood of Conquest using plasma torches. They moved through the ship like death itself, their armor protecting them from alien claws and weapons. Secure the bridge, Baker ordered over the radio. Take prisoners for interrogation. The Scarix fought hard, but human weapons were designed to kill their species. Dr. Lee's research had paid off. Every bullet, every beam, every explosion was optimized to penetrate alien scales and armor. Baker found the ship's captain trying to destroy the computer systems. The alien was twice Baker's size, with claws that could cut through steel, but Baker's armor was stronger than steel. You're coming with us, Baker said, stunning the alien with an electric weapon. The prisoners were taken to the UES Justice, a ship converted into a mobile courthouse. There they faced human judges who had studied the New Haven videos frame by frame. You are charged with crimes against humanity, Judge Robert Kane told the captured Scarix captain. The penalty is death. We followed orders, the alien replied through a translator. We are soldiers. Soldiers don't murder children, Kane responded. Soldiers don't execute civilians. You are war criminals, and you will be treated as such. The TRIALS were broadcast across both human and Scarix space. The galaxy watched as humanity's justice system processed the aliens who had committed the massacre. Dr. Marcus Lee's new weapons proved devastatingly effective in every battle. The frequency punch missiles could penetrate any Scarix shield. The plasma sword cannons could cut alien ships in half. The ghost strike torpedoes could phase through armor before exploding inside enemy hulls. Captain Ryan Scott's intelligence network fed Torres a constant stream of targets. Hidden bases, secret shipyards, supply depots, communication centers. The humans seemed to know where every Scarix military asset was located. How do they know so much about us? Dector demanded of his intelligence officers. We don't know, Commander, came the reply. Our security is being penetrated at every level. The truth was that human technology had advanced beyond anything the Scarix understood. AI systems could crack their codes in minutes. Stealth ships could infiltrate their space undetected. Spy satellites could monitor their communications from light years away. The human war machine was learning and adapting with every battle. When the Scarix changed their shield frequencies, human weapons adjusted within hours. When they moved their fleets, human scouts tracked them across the galaxy. Admiral Torres divided his forces into hunting groups. Each group consisted of 50 ships and targeted a specific region of Scarix space. They moved like wolves, striking fast and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Captain Adams commanded Hunting Group 7, which specialized in destroying Scarix supply lines. Her ships would appear at a convoy, destroy every vessel, then vanish back into hyperspace. Target acquired, reported her sensor officer during one attack. 50 cargo ships, 10 escorts. Standard procedure, Adams replied. Kill the escorts. Scan the cargo ships for anything useful, then destroy them. The convoy was carrying food and medical supplies to Scarix colonies. Under normal circumstances, Adams might have felt bad about destroying civilian supplies, but these weren't normal circumstances. They should have thought about supply lines before they murdered our people. She said, watching the cargo ships burn. The Scarix Empire began to fracture under the relentless human assault. Outer colonies declared independence rather than face human attack. Military governors abandoned their posts and fled deeper into alien territory. Dector found himself commanding a shrinking empire as world after world fell to human forces or simply surrendered. His own officers began questioning his decisions. Perhaps we should negotiate, suggested Subcommander Victor during a strategy meeting. Negotiate, Dector roared, with animals who cry over dead young. These animals are destroying our empire, Victor replied. Maybe crying over dead younglings makes them stronger, not weaker. Dector killed Victor for his words, but the doubt had been planted. Other officers began to wonder if the humans were something more dangerous than they had originally thought. Admiral Torres received reports of Scarix forces retreating toward their homeworld. Intelligence suggested that Dector was gathering his remaining ships for a final battle at Scarth. How many ships does he have left? Torres asked Captain Scott during a secure briefing. Maybe 200, Scott replied. Down from over 1,000 at the start of the war. And how many do we have? 300 combat-ready vessels, with more arriving every week. Torres smiled grimly. The numbers favored humanity, but numbers weren't everything. The Scarix would be fighting for their homeworld, which would make them desperate and dangerous. Prepare the fleet for the final assault, Torres ordered, and send a message to Dr. Wright. Tell her we might need her special project. The special project was the Planet Breaker weapon, the most terrible device ever created by human science. Torres hoped he wouldn't have to use it, but he wanted the option available. The human fleet began moving toward Scarth, the heart of the Scarix Empire. Behind them lay a trail of burning military bases and destroyed alien ships. Ahead lay the final confrontation that would determine the fate of both species. On Earth, factories continued building new weapons and ships. The human war effort had become unstoppable, fueled by images of dead children and burning colonies. The galaxy watched and waited to see how the war would end. Some species hoped the humans would show mercy. Others feared that humanity had become something darker than the aliens they were fighting. But Admiral Torres had made his decision months ago, when he first saw Amy Foster die protecting her students. The Scarix had wanted to teach humanity about fear and death. Now it was time for the final lesson. The final battle began in the shadow of Skirthoth, the Scarix homeworld. Admiral Torres brought 300 human warships to face the last remnants of the alien empire. War Commander Thector waited with 200 Scarix vessels, including their massive fortress ship, Dominion of Scar, a weapons platform the size of a small moon. "Sir," reported the sensor officer, aboard the UES Retribution. "Enemy fleet is taking defensive positions around their homeworld." Torres looked at the tactical display showing the alien formation. The Scarix had positioned their strongest ships between the humans and their planet. They were making their final stand. "Send a message to all ships," Torres ordered. "Today we finish what they started at New Haven." Captain Julie Adams commanded the stealth attack group from her ship, the UES Phantom. Her job was to slip past the alien defenses and strike their command vessels. "Ghost Squadron, this is Phantom Leader," she transmitted to her 19 escort ships. "Remember, we're not just fighting for victory, we're fighting for the 50,000 people who can't fight for themselves." The battle opened with long-range missile exchanges. Human Hellfire kinetics punched through Scarix shields, while alien plasma beams struck human armor. Ships on both sides began dying within the first 5 minutes. Captain Ryan Scott's intelligence had identified the weak points in the Scarix formation. "Target the supply ships first," Torres ordered. "Cut off their ammunition and fuel." Commander Nick Baker led the first wave of assault ships against the alien perimeter. His heavy cruisers traded shots with Scarix destroyers in brutal close combat. Metal burned and crews died as the two fleets tore each other apart. "Direct hit on their flagship's engines," reported Baker over the radio. "They're losing power." "Good," Torres replied. "Keep the pressure on them." But Decta had prepared for this battle carefully. Hidden weapon platforms throughout the system began firing on the human fleet. Massive energy beams struck human ships from unexpected angles. "Admiral," called the tactical officer, "we're taking heavy losses. Should we pull back?" Torres watched his ships dying on the display screen. Each loss meant hundreds of human lives, brave people who had volunteered to avenge New Haven. But retreat was not an option. "Negative," he said. "We finish this today." Dr. Susan Wright's weapons proved their worth in the battle. The plasma sword cannons cut through alien armor like hot knives through butter. The phase strike missiles appeared inside enemy ships and exploded from within. Captain Adams and her stealth ships reached the alien command center. The Dominion of Scar was protected by shields and armor that could stop conventional weapons. But the Phantom carried something special. Activating quantum torpedoes, Adams announced to her crew, "If this works, we can end this war in one shot." The torpedoes were Dr. Wright's latest creation, weapons that could phase through any defense and strike directly at a ship's core systems. They had never been tested in real combat. "Torpedoes away," reported the weapons officer. The quantum weapons passed through the fortress ship's shields like they weren't there. They struck the alien vessel's main reactor and caused a chain reaction that lit up space like a new star. But the Dominion of Scar didn't die easily. Even as it burned, the massive ship continued firing its weapons at human targets. Vector refused to surrender, even as his flagship came apart around him. "Human Admiral," came a transmission from the dying fortress. "I offer you single combat. Winner takes all." Torres considered the challenge. According to intelligence reports, Dector was personally responsible for planning the New Haven massacre. This was the alien who had ordered the deaths of children. Accepted, Torres replied, but not in ships. Meet me on the surface of your world. Both commanders took shuttles down to Scarth's surface, to a barren plain where their fleets could watch the final confrontation. Torres brought only a sidearm and his rage. Dector brought his claws and his pride. The alien was twice Torres' size, with scales that could stop bullets and claws that could cut through steel. But Torres had something more powerful than physical advantages. Before we begin, Torres said, activating a holographic projector, I want you to see something. The hologram showed the final moments of New Haven colony. Jake Morrison dying as he tried to save civilians. Lisa Morrison falling as the medical center collapsed. Amy Foster's last breath as she protected her students. This is why you die today, Torres told the alien commander. Not for territory or resources or pride, for them. The fight was brief and brutal. Vector's claws tore through Torres' armor, but human technology gave the Admiral advantages the alien couldn't match. Energy shields protected him from the worst attacks while his weapons punched through alien scales. When it was over, Vector lay dying in the dust of his homeworld. You fight like animals, he gasped. No, Torres replied, standing over his fallen enemy. Animals don't plan revenge. Animals don't build weapons specifically to kill their enemies' children. We fight like humans, with their commander dead. The remaining Scarix forces surrendered. The battle was over, but the war's consequences were just beginning. Admiral Torres returned to his flagship to find a message waiting from Earth. President Parker's face appeared on the screen, her expression grave. Admiral, we've been monitoring the battle. Congratulations on your victory. Now, we need to discuss what happens next. The Scarix Empire is broken, Torres reported. Their military is destroyed, their leadership dead or captured. They're no longer a threat to anyone. What about their civilian population? Parker asked. Torres looked out at the Scarix homeworld, where 2 billion aliens lived in cities that had never been touched by war. He had the power to destroy them all, with Dr. Wright's planet-breaker weapon. They weren't the ones who killed our people, Torres said finally. Their military leaders made that choice. We'll dismantle their government and occupy their worlds, but we won't commit genocide. It was a decision that would define humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. 5 years later, Admiral Torres stood in a garden on the rebuilt New Haven colony. A memorial wall bore the names of all 49,153 people who had died in the massacre. Fresh flowers covered the ground where families once lived. Do you think they would approve? Asked Captain Adams, who had come to visit the memorial. Torres touched one of the names on the wall. Amy Foster, teacher, age 34. They would want justice, not revenge. We gave them justice. The Scarix survivors had been relocated to agricultural worlds under human supervision. Their military was disbanded forever, their weapons destroyed, their aggressive culture forcibly changed. Some called it harsh, but Torres called it necessary. Children played in the New Haven gardens, sons and daughters of the survivors who had returned to rebuild their world. They laughed and ran where their predecessors had died. Proof that life could overcome death. Jake Morrison's son, now grown and serving as the colony's new administrator, approached the memorial. Thank you, Admiral, he said simply, for bringing them home. Torres nodded, understanding. The dead could never truly come home. But their memory lived on in every human child who grew up safe from alien aggression. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about humanity. They were a species that could show great kindness to friends and terrible wrath to enemies. Other alien races now approached human space with respect rather than contempt. As Torres walked through the memorial garden, he read the inscription carved into the central monument. They came in peace. They died in terror. They were avenged. In fury. Never forgotten. Never forgiven. The words were a promise and a warning. Humanity would explore the stars and make friends with peaceful species. But anyone who threatened human civilians would face the same fate as the Scarix Empire. In the depths of space, human colonies continued to grow and prosper under the protection of the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. They carried the memory of New Haven and the knowledge that their species would never again allow innocents to die unavenged. The age of human expansion had resumed, but now it came with the reputation that preceded it across the stars. Humanity was no longer seen as weak prey, but as the galaxy's most dangerous predator when provoked. And in the ruins of the Scarix Empire, the survivors told their children stories about the humans who came from Earth. Stories about what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness, and what happens when you harm someone under humanity's protection. The war was over, but its lessons would echo through the galaxy forever.